Fingers crossed.
I don't see the Facebook. There we go. And we are live on Facebook. Good evening, guys. How you doing?
What's
Woo!
Rich,
up,
Greg?
everyone? Hey,
How you
hey,
doing?
hey.
I'm doing as good as I can be, I think.
Yeah, I
Right,
think so too, right? Likewise.
Hey, happy belated to you, David. happy-
Happy belated to you, man. 2 days
Yeah,
ago.
it's our what is it called? They call it the birthday week, I guess. Yeah, it was amazing.
You know what, Greg? I appreciate you saying that. I love when our birthdays, which our viewers, our birthdays are a day apart, which they're probably only a few hours apart.
We
Because Greg,
calculated it's a few hours only, yeah, because
you
I
were
was
born
born
in Russia,
yeah.
right? I was born in LA.
Mm,
11 or 12 hour difference, maybe. Yeah.
yeah.
And there you go. But I love when our birthdays fall on Holy Week.
Yes, it's
I
pretty
love it.
cool.
I
Yeah,
love
and I'll be in service tomorrow because it's the Monday, Thursday,
it. Mhm.
and obviously then there's the Good Friday, and then Easter Sunday as
It's
well.
like you guys get a built-in birthday present every year, right?
Yeah, I'll tell you one thing. Absolutely, absolutely. I'll tell you one thing that's always been like it's because I'm pretty strict on it. It's my birthdays are always. Oh, I'm sorry. Who am I talking to? Richard over here, the vegan. My birthdays are always vegetarian for me.
My birthdays are always vegetarian. Now too. Hey, but I actually get my own gift for my birthday every year in the form of the Major League Baseball All-Star Game. Usually hits July 10th, so
Awesome.
I
Nice.
win
Well,
every
summer
year.
birthdays are cool. Summer's cool. Like I've always wanted to have a pool party on my birthday. This year actually would have been great, but it's usually not that hot. So
Yeah.
Could have been, yeah.
anyway.
Yeah, you know what? I have a big birthday coming up right now, and this year, and I'm just like, I don't like throwing parties. I mean, I love having them thrown for me, but I'm not going to go. Hey, guess what? It's my birthday. That's just not my jam. I don't know. But I mean,
It's all good, man. It's all good.
that that's not that's not a subtle invitation for you guys.
I got
I'm just saying.
noted, David. I think we're gonna throw in ours. Anyways, y'all.
Yeah, let's get started. Yeah.
Happy birthday, happy birthday. We got a cool show today for you out there. A lot of news, a lot of excitement. Actually, there's like for the first time that are like we're very very happy news. Rhymes with schmucker, uh, soccer. But we'll get to that later. Want to kind of spotlight what we're fundraising for today, which is the Armenian, the Wounded Heroes Fund. As always, an amazing organization doing phenomenal stuff for those that have done the most for allowing us to stay as a nation, stay as a country. Those that have served, those that have been serving and are in need of our help. And what we can do is we will start off with. So as you're watching the show, you can please, if you feel compelled and if you can, please just click the donate button right underneath your screen and donate. You can also do so after the show if you're watching it not live. Anyways, and a great way to start is obviously we can showcase today. Unfortunately, the person that was so pivotal and so important to the liberation of Shushi, another wounded hero of ours, passed away at the age of 81. So we want to start the show with, honoring his memory. And this is Major General Arkady Tertatevosyan, nicknamed Commandos. That was what he was codenamed and called by his peers and those that served under him. He was the one that liberated and stormed Shushi and was able to take it back for
Yeah.
us. I do not want to even go through. Born in Tiflis, the city that I grew up in. I really don't even want to start thinking what this young man was thinking when he saw what happened in the last 3 months.
Oh,
Because I was in
Yeah.
Shushi and I was in the museum of Shushi, and a woman that I wish I could find out how she's doing, because this is literally a resident of Shushi that I've seen. Rose and I, my sister, we've been, and it's the young lady named Nina. And sometimes I'm trying to figure out how can I find out what has happened to her. And she was so gracious to show us how the operation of taking storming Shushi was done, which was codenamed. Um, I believe it's called Wedding in the Sky or Summer Wedding. They had a very interesting code name for that operation. and she explained to me how masterfully, how skillfully, like a chess piece, that entire operation was done, and this general was at the center of it all. So,
Yeah,
rest in peace, commandos.
yeah. Yeah,
Uh,
the liberation of Shushi, he commanded, as you mentioned, the operation on May 8, 1992. He was the leader of the armed forces during the first war in Artsakh and Armenia's former deputy minister of defense. May he rest in peace. Yeah.
So
Do we want to talk a little bit about how this evening's show is going to go?
Yeah, Rich, I was going to ask if you could do that. That'd be great, man. Just give an overview. That'd be awesome.
Right. So, a lot has been put into this episode in terms of getting together a lot of information for you folks about, all the different news sources and, who to pay attention to and how to do it. I would caution anybody and say that we're not really trying to tell you who you shouldn't pay attention to, other than to say these are the things that you should probably be aware of when looking at news sources. We'd like to think of ourselves as more of an aggregator, and what we do is we pull together all sorts of content and have discussions about it and try and make it more relevant and more engaging for the audience, and hopefully you feel the same way. And so what we're going to do is I'm going to give you an idea what this show and the next show is actually going to be like. Today, we're going to talk about the news. We're going to talk a little bit about how you can get different news sources and who to work with. And then next week, we're going to talk about how to disseminate that information. And David's got some great information being part of a great regional task force. And he can explain that in a second. But the idea is today we're going to talk about how to get information, and next week we're going to talk about how to disseminate it, how to properly do it through social media.
Well said.
Yeah, couldn't have said it better myself. Yeah, we want to. We live in a very, very kind of confusing time at times, right? And those that control the media often control the narrative, but a very well-informed individual who will be our guest soon, as well as we want to make sure that each and every one of you understands how to, you can pick your favorite source, but even your favorite source can become corrupted. In this time, I have started to read from places that I used to respect, and now I completely understand that some of those sources may be manipulated or not as objective as I thought. Okay.
Absolutely.
And and understanding how to do that, understanding how to where to cherry pick and where to be critical and where to just kind of, that doesn't mean you need to censor yourself. It just you need to be aware. Okay.
Yeah. Well said.
You'll see us going to a handful of different what we consider trusted sources regularly, and hopefully you picked up on that and are following them as well. So you want to get to the first news item of the day?
Yeah, let's do it. We're still seeing aggression by these areas. You would think that, obviously we know that they're never satisfied, even after taking 80% of the former lands of Artsakh that were ours. They continue their aggression, and they undermine regional stability, as Stepanakert has called out recently. Greg, what can we share about this? We've seen on multiple days.
Yeah, so this is
targeting civilian vehicles, transporting the remains of soldiers.
Guys,
yeah,
I don't. I'll pull back my my emotions, and I'll just say that we've been shot at during peace times, and now we're in open conflict time. What do you think that's not going to happen? And now the borders are drawn in such a way that they are controlling high ground in every piece of that. This commandos general would probably. I can't imagine what he was thinking in his last days, when everything we did in the previous war was to make sure that we have strategic high ground, and now we literally have villages where the Azeri military is right above, and they're throwing rocks at our passing cars because they're idiots and they're not, they're subhuman to me. Okay, so
they are. It's continual intimidation. It's continued acts of aggression. I mean, in this case, this vehicle was transporting remains of fallen soldiers, and I don't know if they knew that, but it doesn't matter. They're attacking
It
civilian
really
vehicles.
doesn't matter. It doesn't
Yeah.
matter, but
Yeah.
chances are they knew. I don't
Yeah,
know.
probably, right.
It's like
Apparently, 2 days, March 25 and 29, Azerbaijani side targeted civilian vehicles moving along the Karmir, Shuka, Stepanakert, and Stepanakert Goris highways by throwing rocks. There you go.
yeah. And where do you think they were throwing rocks from? The high grounds of Shushin. Okay,
Right.
because it's a fortress city.
Right.
You can
And
probably, yeah.
No, I was going to say the second incident was the vehicle carrying the remains of those deceased during the war. Or
Anyways.
military aggression by Azerbaijan, not even war. Yeah. Anyway, I don't mean to cut you off, Greg.
No, I understand. I guess let's breeze through because
Yeah.
I want to get to our guest, and I want to kind of
Sure.
these
Well,
things,
we're seeing.
these things are gonna continue happening, and I'm sorry, I don't want to sound like I'm down, but it's like when Yerevan and people in Yerevan talk about opening up the borders and unblocking the economic blockade, the only blockade that ever was self-imposed by us on ourselves because we had the moral high ground of not needing to deal with genocide denialists and genociding maniacs. So, like there's a country out there that throws rocks at the bodies of our deceased soldiers. I don't understand how you're gonna buy fruits from them or how you're gonna sell wool to them. So just something
Right.
to think about.
That's a good point, man. They're also destroying our cultural heritage sites and churches, right?
That's the whole
Actively.
point of genocide,
Actively.
isn't it? It's not just the killing of people; it's the erasure of who we are. It's
Exactly.
it's
Exactly.
the idea that they can erase the thought of us even being there. I mean, so much is often made of the quote, who today remembers the annihilation of the Armenians, however you want to parse that up, the Hitler quote. But and this is maybe something else we can get to, but how many of us talk today of Western Armenia?
It's true.
You know what I mean?
Or Nahicheva, right?
Yeah, for sure. The line keeps getting moved, and we talk about Auld Lang Syne and on this back in the day, but things are happening right now. Anyway.
Yes, so this one that we're showing here, Rich, right? It was the Armenian Genocide Monument. It was also a monument dedicated to victims of the Armenian Genocide, the Patriotic War, and the First Karabakh War in Shushi. This monument in Shushi was leveled, and it's the fourth known destruction of cultural heritage artifact or site in Artsakh that's been destroyed.
Yeah.
And so we
Not
have
surprising at all.
more has to be done to prevent this, but it's not being stopped.
Right.
Guys, it's impossible to stop it. I'm sorry. So but I commend everyone that wants to. Moving along.
Yeah.
They continue.
They're continuing to vandalize the churches, right? There's this from March 29. I'm not sure if we're. Yeah. So they're showing soldiers holding the Last Supper picture, defacing what appears to be the Last Supper, right? So soldiers are doing that. This is from the St. Yegishe Church in Artsakh Matagis. This was surfaced, was published by Armenia's human rights defender, Armand Tetoyan, on his Facebook page.
So again, this is the we kind of knew that this was going to happen. The question is, why? And I hate to sound like a broken record, but why isn't anybody else? Why isn't anybody else talking about this? Like, why are there human rights abuses happening and no human rights entities are being vocal about it? How come it's not getting the kind of news that it should?
Right.
And I mean, why are the three of us the ones talking about it and others aren't?
Right. It's true.
I don't know.
Well, we've made it our mission, Rich, we got to share this. And we're going to be giving people ways and tools on how to share information about this more actively, right? Yet we need to rely on our representatives as well. We need the international community also needs to do more, and they're not. So
I've maintained this for more than a decade. not only in conversations with the three of us, but in community organizing and political advocacy work, which our upcoming guest was also a part of. And some of the discussions, for me, I've always maintained, if we can't out fundraise, if we can't out lobby, if we can't out hire PR firms to eclipse the Turkish and Azeri oil money, if we can't fight them that way, we can out organize and we can out execute. The question is, how willing are we to do that? And how willing is the average Armenian to put aside ego and to just go for it? And those are the questions that I have to ask. So, whatever.
Yeah, it's true. Shall we touch on the continued political turmoil that we're seeing? And
the turmoil will continue. Absolutely. Yes, I agree. Yeah. Go ahead. Sorry, I cut you off.
No, it's fine. Well, also the border demarcation that you touched on at the top, right, Greg? We can talk about that a little bit as well.
So the first thing up is we have some interesting news about Pashinyan's potential resignation.
Yeah, well, he's saying he's going to resign, right? But then he's going to act as the acting prime minister. Greg, what can we tell people about this? It makes no sense.
It's guys, I'm so sorry. I feel like I'm a little bit unprofessional today because I seem to be like the depth of the lunacy of what's happening in Armenia just can't seem to stop. Yes, so the snap elections that he's and we can jump into the next thing, of course, right? Is the snap elections that he is setting for June, whatever, 20th, I believe, or something like that, which is can't be any further out. He's already also utilizing illegally government resources to essentially campaign. Anytime he does any kind of project outside of Armenia, he's naturally essentially campaigning. He also says that under provision, he's going to resign, but then in the interim, before the snap elections, he is also going to appoint himself as the interim prime minister. I'm sure that there is a technicality there, some sort of a constitutional loophole, some sort of a formality. I don't care. I don't care, guys. I don't care, because we got rocks thrown at our dead bodies, and we have Sunik that is being demarcated and thrown apart. I want some sanity in the driver's seat, man.
Right. No, but to your point, Greg, it is a technicality according to the Constitution. For the snap elections, he has to resign. The thing about him staying on as acting prime minister, I don't know. I think more research is probably needed on that, but it's just very, very fishy. And then he's going around talking, threatening in a lot of ways. His quote was to the effect of, while he's speaking to people, I will resign. I will act as acting prime minister. And when the election time comes, you can elect me. Our party will do better than before, or you can elect the wolves. He literally said that you can elect the wolves. So that sounds like a threat to me.
Hey guys, just so you know, I'm giving up my role as the producer, but until you find a new one, I'll keep doing it. And then, right? You see what I'm saying? It's a joke. It's a joke, right? Tell me this isn't like, well, it's like they're taking a page out of the out of some comedy manual. I don't get it.
Well, except for it's degrading to the Armenian stability, right?
Right.
And I know it does seem comedic, but at some point you need to try to make light of it, even though it is a grave danger to what's going on. But what's gripping my mind is, at this time, that he has some semblance of support is just
that's the scary thing, Greg, right? It's like I was going to mention that, Rich, you too, like it's like he's daring everybody, go ahead, I know I'll be reelected. Because here's the problem, right? The snap elections, if his My Step wins again, if his party wins again, they can still reelect him, right? That's my understanding of how it works, and I believe I read that somewhere. Greg, maybe you have some more insight on that. But I think if his party retains power, he could very easily be reelected. They could also try to find someone else from my step, but the chances are he may be reelected if his party's still in power.
It's yeah. Anyways, oh boy.
Because it's a parliamentary government. This is not like our government where the people go elect the president. The people elect the party elects the prime minister, right?
Yeah, they choose.
So it's I don't know. That may not be the best course of action right now. So
Just want to remind that we have 4 minutes before our guest comes on.
yeah, let's crank
About
through it.
how to disseminate and how to find information, how to best
Right.
what do you call it, forage for facts in this minefield of information out there. But moving forward,
Why don't we touch on the demarcation stuff, because that's pretty high priority, and we can post the others and still touch on them in the
Well,
future.
we're already starting to see these lines. I mean, you know, like I think it's Google that is now calling it Shusha instead of Shushi, and you know, there's all sorts of changes that are already happening. And I don't know about you guys, but I find a lot of that unacceptable. Not surprising, but it's hard to accept this stuff.
Right.
I'm sorry, I would like to stay silent on this one because I just know too much. These lines were drawn pretty arbitrarily back in the Soviet days, and the fact that there is an imbecile that's out there that can't even push back on it, every single piece of that, we are going to fight so hard to maintain any semblance of a survivable land once this is done, and he's doing their bidding. And the morons in our nation that support him just don't see it. Y'all, I'm sorry I went there, but he's already done so much worse than Serge and Kocharan's ever done. And I know that's sacrilege to his base right now. Oh my goodness, he is the reformer. He did not fire every oligarch. He kept some of them that funded his My Step party and his My Step foundation. He has the backing of very anti-Armenian organizations from abroad. Serge never did that. Kocharan never did that. Yeah, they were cutthroat businessmen and they did shady shit. But they definitely did not lose Artsakh, and Shushi was goddamn ours. Okay.
Well, they didn't push Russia away.
They did not push Russia away. This guy is dangling a carrot in front of the liberal left, which I am part of. Okay. He himself could care less about any of it. He's playing this way and that way, and there is no leadership that can stop this. I'm sorry. And now we got to adhere to these egregious, archaic Soviet Union maps that if any was able to at least point in the right direction. Well, the diaspora, majority of the people I speak to, and actually the Turks love it, have no idea what is, where is Karmir Shuka?
Right.
I have no idea what that even is. The significance of Shushi versus its geographic location with Stepanakert, its juxtaposition. Right. You know what I mean?
Right.
They don't know. And because of that, they can't object. They can't understand. Well, it says that the lines were here. Do you know why? Because one collective farm was there, the other collective farm was here. That's why these lines are squiggly like that. And in reality, if you look at the actual topography, there's a piece of Azerbaijan literally wedged into Armenia, high up above a settlement with almost no connection to Azerbaijan. But now they'll have to ramp up roads because we just gave them amazing military strategic positions.
Yep, and there's one of those such elevated areas that's right above Sevon, right, Greg? Right above Lake Sevon. I think it's in that map that we showed. Yeah, it's in the map from the article. Yeah.
Don't even, guys. Don't even. All right.
It's extremely concerning. Yeah. Well, we're at 9:30.
Let me check on our guest. Lots, and we can. Hold on. Let's see.
If guest is there, perhaps we jump straight to that. If not, perhaps you can proceed with some news items. But
yeah, obviously, again, Yerevan not talking with Ankara to normalize relations. Again, what is up? I think he's in the waiting room. Guys, I'm sorry if my unprofessionalism is unraveling right now. even FM wants radical change in Turkish policy towards Armenia. What bargaining chip do we have?
Yeah, we have none.
What like, I mean, it's cute, but like, and also Yerevan is not talking to Ankara on blah 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 blah. I don't know in this particular constantly shifting scenario onto what Armenia wants, meaning Yerevan, where in that particular news item fits. I'm already starting to get confused as well. But bottom line is, I don't know, maybe Yerevan wants to play hardball with Ankara. I don't know how it's even, I don't know if that's even a possibility.
Right. Well, the other thing that I read this week, that there was, it was interesting. Russia said that they have historically good relations with Armenia and excellent trust relations with Azerbaijan.
Right.
I find that fascinating. So, for weeks, many of us, myself included, have been like, I'm all about Team Russia right now. It's all about Team Putin. Thank you for helping save it. But, I think we need to get wise, and I think we need to get real about the fact that, Russia has their own self-interest in mind. They've got strategic interest.
100%. They're going to sell arms.
We are approaching this from an altruistic sort of like, I want to do the right thing kind of perspective. And that hasn't done this nation anything in the past 100 years.
Yep.
Anyway, do we want to talk about the high-tech minister?
Yeah, that was breaking today. He resigned real quick. He resigned because of the altercation he attacked a journalist in a cafe. And
for what reason? Do you remember why?
Well, the journalist was questioning him. Apparently he was out with his wife eating around lunchtime, and the journalist asked him, why are you here right now? It's lunchtime.
Why are you here at a time when what do you call it, at a time when you're
working or
something? Working.
I'm not trying to defend the guy. I'm not sure how fair that is. I mean, you do have a right to go out to lunch, I guess, but because of the emergencies that's befalled our nation, I get where the frustration of that journalist was coming from, but it's apparently out of character, according to people close to this minister, for him to attack like that, but he did, and here we are. He did, you could argue he did the right thing. They have some candidates. Apparently lined up to replace him. I don't know. What's that?
He always has candidates lined up, and some of these candidates, I look at them and I just kind of, I'm not a fan of this former minister, but
yeah, the only thing that's troubling, and this is from a source that's been working with him closely. Apparently, the deputy ministers, if their team is intact, everything should be fine. The only thing that's disappointing is he had a number of projects that were like midway through. He was in the middle of, apparently.
Okay, they can.
So anyway, we don't need to spend any more time on it, but he is today resigned.
So I'm going to let in our guest in a second. We can cover any of the other bullet points at the end of it if we want to.
Do it.
But this is a good friend of ours, Otto Kerkorian. He's a Southern California native. He's spent a lot of time, in business, whether it be for big pharma or even manufacturing or even the government. I met him about the same time I met you guys, which was more than about a dozen years ago at this point. And we were doing some advocacy work, and he's got a history of working with the AYF and of course ANCA, and then also spending time, as we all have, in the church. So I'd like to bring on our next guest. Thanks for setting this up, Greg. Ara Krikorian, who is getting himself in it right now. And Greg, can you tell us a little bit about what we're going to be talking about in this next segment with Ara?
Yeah. I want to say hey Ara, thank you for. I know he's a busy guy, and I'm so happy that he was able to join. What's up, man?
Hi guys.
Thanks for joining.
How's it going?
Behind you.
Excellent.
Well,
amazing.
yeah, it's my computer background.
Right.
Nice.
It's where my ancestors are from. So my family's actually from Bonn.
Awesome.
Both sides. No, not
Likewise,
both
man.
sides.
Likewise.
One side of my family.
Amazing.
My father's side as well.
All right, thanks for joining us. Rich just asked me a question, which I'm going to attempt at answering. Ara has been, is a friend. He's an activist. He's someone that has a great depth and knowledge in terms of what's happening, kind of not behind the scenes, but It's okay. Don't be humble, man. Well, because the point here is to kind of project that onto the audience for them to be able to also kind of decipher, where to get their information. Obviously they come to Arach Media, and we also kind of drink out of our vast channels of sources, right? I speak Russian, so I have some of that. But Ara and I would always go back and forth when he would watch Arach Media, see how much we're trying to like pour energy into advocating and educating the local NorCal Armenian community, right? And so we started chatting, and I started understanding that this man understands where the information flow comes from different sources, and how it is being presented, which channel is not in whose pocket, but is pushing what narrative. And in reality, it is definitely, you start understanding that the Armenia's media sphere is just as convoluted as the actual scenario of what's going on in Armenia itself right now politically. Tell me if I'm right, Ara.
No, I mean, I more or less agree. And again, it's just been a few months ever since the war really began that I really just started spending every day, me and my wife, I mean, we'd be up till 2 a.m., 3 a.m. every day, like everyone else was educating themselves. So come a few years ago, when the Velvet Revolution was happening, I didn't know much about anything. I was as ignorant as your average, call it Ameriga. And I was just happy that everyone in Armenia was happy, and I was like, oh, that's great. And I was as ignorant and naive as I feel that most Armenians were. And I mean, I didn't know about the information flow and who was funding what back then either. And when you follow the money, things become a lot more obvious as to what's going on. So, I mean, and that goes for American politics as it goes for any type of politics or any type of control mechanism. So at the end of the day, you really are what you eat. And we're being fed a lot of foreign food that isn't sitting really well with the Armenian sovereignty stomach.
I would hate to think that the Armenians could become the first test case for how you lose territory because of disinformation in the modern era.
Well, I don't even think we're the first. I mean, these color revolutions have happened all through Eastern Europe.
Yeah, but I mean, I'm talking about
Georgia,
actual country.
I mean, Georgia is a really good example, and Greg's from there.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, they had the same exact thing happen a few years ago, a decade ago, a little bit more than a decade ago.
Yeah, with 2008.
Saakashvili was their Nikol. I mean, Saakashvili was the foreign-funded shill, and he caused them to lose a good deal of their territory to Russia, and then the rest of the country has, because of their open border policy and because of the neoliberalization of the country, they've become more or less a province of Turkey. Not all of it, but a good portion of their industry is pretty much where we're being led. I think it's the same path, more or less. We're a different country. Things are a little bit different in Armenia. The process is always going to be different, but it's essentially the same game plan.
The saturation of our industries by Turkish enterprises, and on the outset, what's going to happen is you're going to see this segregated class, and in Georgia is already the ones that benefit from it, and there's going to be that that elite core that's like, yeah, I'm the enterprise owner, and Turkish, it doesn't matter who's funded, but this happens to be Turkish, and it will be Turkish, and at that point, how to separate this madness will be even harder. Georgia, if you ask me today, yes, I am an Armenian from Georgia, probably can't untangle. But I want to take it back a step. It can't. It's so tangled up. But Batumi, their second largest city, is probably 80% Turkish funded. Like all those high-rise hotels. You know what I mean? And by the way, like 60% vacationed by Armenians. Okay, so it's like a very interesting duality there. Ara, just wanted to kind of ask, you mentioned that there's the information that is being fed. First of all, that's true, it's being fed. there it comes from like, what are the camps that you're seeing, right? What are the different broad areas that you can tell are the major camps of the information flows in the Armenian media?
So I mean, you've got, and again, year ago, 2 years ago, I had no idea of this either. So it's stuff that I've just educated myself on, and I follow a bunch of people who are experts in different fields. That when you put the pieces together, I mean, you get a better holistic understanding of it. In terms of just news, I mean, 70% of the news that Armenians in Armenia receive are through either foreign funded or the government controlled sources. So the current civil contract government, Nikol Pashinyan's government, as well as the foreign funded institutions, call it Azadutun, which is the largest news source in Armenia. Azadutun was created in like the 40s to combat, not Azadutun specifically, but Radio Free Europe, Radio Liberty, was created by the CIA, by the State Department to combat communism, to directly spread American Western values and propaganda to the Eastern Bloc in Europe and to try to curtail communism's growth. So Azadutun, which is Radio Free Europe in Armenia, is the largest news source that there is. And it's the fire hose that Armenia receives. So our major news source to Armenians is a foreign funded news source. And again, out here in the West, I'm a bleeding heart liberal, but I understand that the interests of NATO and the interests of the United States might not be aligned perfectly with what the interests of Armenia's sovereignty are. So when a news source is not funded by a local government, or when it's not funded by local interests, at that point you kind of have to think about what the reasons for that is. Why is there so much funding being put into foreign funded media? The large, I mean, there's a laundry list of news companies in Armenia, more so than you would think a country of Armenia's size would have. And nearly, not all of them, but a very large majority of it are through foreign interests.
Okay.
So, yeah.
And a lot of these foreign interests are kind of we can call those funded through a lot of these NGOs that are in Armenia.
Yeah,
right?
exactly.
And by and large, Armenia as a small nation has a very high percentage of NGO activity. That's also very concerning? Is it not the case?
I mean, absolutely. I mean, most of the NGOs and these news companies are funded by the same sources. So you've got, call it a dozen Western sources that have their own agendas and have the same narrative, more or less. I mean, it's very anti-Russian narratives that all these news sources and NGOs preach. You don't see them being extremely critical of Turkey. Everything they preach is a very pro-Armenian and Turkey reconciliation type message. Yes, genocide recognition and whatnot, but it's the let's move forward messaging. All the negative messaging that they give out is the anti-Russian messaging. So again, everyone has an agenda. I mean, there isn't an Armenian source that wouldn't have an agenda too. But to your point with the Turks taking over industry in Georgia and that being the issue with Armenia in the future, and then the discussion about corruption. I mean, would you rather have a corrupt Armenian? At the end of the day, let's take this to the extreme. Or would you rather have a corrupt foreigner controlling your industry?
That's an excellent point, because
I think that's where it really goes to.
Yeah, we always kind of operate in this area of like, well, this is not right, and I'm like, okay, let's go to the extreme. Just like what I was telling Richard and David we were discussing earlier. Okay, Kocharan and Sarkisyan are bad people. They're bad dudes. But yeah, we had Artsakh. So let's talk about this. Kocharan, Artsakh, or now with this disarray. I'm not understanding why people are so gung-ho about let's live in whatever this is versus obviously a past that had definitely a lot of problems, lots of problems. I mean, we were all of us here were very pro change, wanted some change, see something, but you know, can we sober up now? Like, is it?
I mean,
is it
even
not-
that though. I mean, I was of the same mindset that, hey, Kocharian and Serge are absolutely horrible. They're the worst Armenians there are, and all of that narrative. You'd never hear that about LTP, by the way. I mean, Levon Tepetros,
yeah. Oh, very
I mean,
interesting how he escaped that.
in terms of emigration, in terms of opening up industry to outside sources, in terms of like a lot of things that would be we would be extremely critical of his successors. That never happened to LTP for some reason because he was very pro-West. But separate from that, I mean, even the narrative, even the propaganda about Serge and Kocharian, when you start peeling back the onion, you realize that it's all based on corruption perception. Corruption perception indices, and then you're like, wait, what do you mean by perception of corruption? When you have Transparency International, which is one of the biggest like NGOs in Armenia, that's very foreign funded and has a very specific agenda. I mean, they put out their corruption perception indices every year, and it's not based on actual corruption. It's based on what the people think is happening in their country. And I've posted it on your shows once or twice when the message came up. When you have the European Bank, who's a very pro-Western entity, who's trying to invest in all the post-Soviet countries, they do their own analyses every year. And when you look at their data, Armenia is a complete outlier when it comes to corruption. It's got very standard level of corruption if you look at their metrics, and then their perception of the corruption of Armenia is extremely high. It's like off the charts in terms of complete outlier, not even close to any of the other countries.
You're saying their perception of Armenian
No, Armenians' perception of corruption
is super
the
high.
ones they have of themselves is multiples higher than what the actual corruption.
Well, that explains a lot. That explains a lot. That explains, I mean, a whole lot. I mean, it explains to me why we have been, and I mentioned this earlier, why we've been in this policy of give me please, do the right thing instead of just working it and doing what we need to do. Because we want to have retain this purist attitude. And so any little infringement is going to look like enormous amounts of corruption, when in actuality, the state of Georgia is much more corrupt. And I don't mean the country. I'm talking about the United States of Georgia.
Well, that's it.
Yeah, and the state of Georgia, number one, with all of its reforms, and now that Saakashvili is gone, all my friends and cousins that are still there, they're like, hey man, you should see the things that are coming back. And let's not talk about our neighbor to the right, the oligarchic state of Azerbaijan. Okay.
Yeah.
That place, like you couldn't, I don't think you can even go to the subway if you don't bribe somebody. Okay. So that is not to say that we should, as Armenians, shouldn't strive better, but I agree.
We always should. I mean,
Yeah.
corruption should always be quashed wherever possible, but corruption is a reality in the United States. It's a reality in Western Europe. It's more of a reality in post-Soviet countries.
Right.
And in Armenia, it's very standard to low compared to those post-Soviet countries, but somehow we're the poster child of the corruption plaguing us, at least in our own minds. And the only thing I can correlate to that is the fact that we have more foreign funded media telling us that we're more corrupt than any of these other countries, if you look at all of them. So if you're being fed with a fire hose that your government is corrupt, you need to change your government. I mean, all these like slow method reform changes that they're trying to make through information. And then you look at the hard data where your corruption is no higher than the average, if not on the low end, but you perceive yourself as being extremely corrupt. I think those two things go hand in hand, and I can't come up with a rationale for why you would have that disparity between why you think you're more corrupt than you are, whereas every other country, and I'll post the report for you guys. It's by the European Bank. It's not by Joe's analysis shop.
Yeah.
I mean, this is an organization that, if anything, it's in their interest to want those changes to happen in Armenia, but their data is showing that the actual corruption is not that high.
Yes.
It's great.
Go ahead, Greg. Go ahead. Yeah.
I just wanted to kind of get back to the news sourcing and how to. So we talk about the foreign funded entities, which Radio Free Europe, right? Azatutun is directly. It's a project of CIA or US, the State
Yeah,
Department,
it's
right?
the State Department,
State
essentially.
Department, yeah,
It
State
used- it used to
Department.
be
So
through the
there's,
CIA, and now they have their own
yeah, there's,
organization that funds
yeah.
them. It's through
Which
the
one do you want to look at
congressional
first,
budget.
gentlemen?
What's up?
what's up?
Which one do you want to look at first?
Well, we've seen the Radio Free Europe, which is Azatotun you showed. But my question now, I will and I'll explain is there are others that we kind of constantly read, but they're also foreign funded, right? For example, EVN Report, CivilNet, and also what do you call it, HEC, right? These are some sources that I trust, I read, and they're very well kind of placed, but they also do have the stamp of foreign fundedness. Am I not correct?
Yeah, I mean they're nearly completely foreign funded.
Mhm.
And I mean again, it's and on a high level, these organizations at the end of the day, if you're being given as a journalist $20,000 or as an organization hundreds of thousands of dollars a year, you're going to try to toe the narrative that your funder wants you to toe. So, and when these people have been are used to getting this funding year in, year out for the past 10 years, 20 years. And again, this isn't something that just started under Pashinyan. This is something, I mean, like the Open Society Foundation started in 1997 during LTP. So it's not like Pashinyan brought these foreign funded sources. So, I mean, I don't blame him for that, but his entire collective of ministers and parliamentarians in his My Step coalition, a very large number of them are from these foreign funded organizations who have no experience doing what they're doing. So it's a very nepotistic government. This very democratic government is actually very nepotistic, but from
an engineering perspective, in other words, how it's constructed. Maybe the concept or the theology behind it is, oh, we're going to be very democratic. But what I just want to articulate that from a mechanical perspective, the people that are in the seats have it's very nepotistic.
Yeah, I mean, they're all, I mean, if you look at all the ministers, I mean, they're ministers and parliamentarians. I mean, a majority of My Step are 25 to like 35 years old. I mean, they're even younger than I am, younger than most of us on the screen. And very few of them have any experience in what they're doing. That's probably the biggest cause for concern. I don't mind if you have a 25-year-old who spent the past 10 years somehow interning in some government office, but a majority of them just work for like Transparency International or work for the Open Society Foundation or for a few different organizations, these NGOs. So these NGOs that supported Nicole are who they are.
I'm sorry. You know what? I don't mean to sound like an old guy, even though I am, but you know, the idea that I would even hand the keys to my car to valet, you know, from a 25-year-old kid. And I'm going to trust that person with the making the right decisions for the benefit of this nation. Are you joking?
I mean, we're seeing the results of that, the end results of what just happened, and it's really, really, you know, David just mentioned before the show that he's involved in a lot of organizing here in the Bay Area, as we all are and were. And there's some information that came through his pipelines that said things that, you know, we assumed we would know, and they are very, very damaging. You know, how this war wasn't just you know, a horribly I don't want to use the word lost because these boys did all they could, right? But it was mismanaged. It was completely mismanaged, and it was full of certain things that were still people are curious if those were done on purpose or those were just complete, like, you know, acts of lunacy in a time of full-on open conflict. So that, you know.
So
that's a whole other issue. I mean,
Yeah.
that's
right. So we brought up the EVN report, and we also brought up HEC.
So guys, let's take a step back for a second if it's okay. Ara, how you doing, man? Thanks for joining us. By the way, quick note to everybody that's watching, once again, please donate early and often for the Armenian Wounded Heroes Project, which we're raising money for tonight.
great
Thanks
organization.
for watching, everyone. Ara, could you just share with us your thoughts on how to make sense of all this, how to make sense of all these different sources, how to pick out what we're talking about, like that might be foreign funded agendas. How do we make sense of it all? What are your thoughts on that?
I mean, I I've been relying less and less on actual news media sources and a lot more on just individuals in Armenia. I mean, I can send you a laundry list of names. I think, Greg, I've shared a few of the names with you, but like, I mean, when you're talking about Azadutun, CivilNet, HET, EVN Report, Factor, I mean, some of these didn't even exist a few years ago. And Factor has like hundreds of thousands of hits for every single one of their videos they put out. CivilNet the same, Azadutun. So I mean, I've actually just been staying away from them. If you want just like news reporting, no opinion. I don't know how to turn off my text messages. Sorry.
Okay.
It's okay.
I need to mute certain group chats, but when you, what was I saying?
They're all saying, "Oh, I see you on TV."
No, I don't think so.
One day.
But,
You're saying how to tune out certain forms.
yeah, I mean, you've got all of these news sources. I mean, they give you opinion pieces, and I don't want opinion from an anti-Armenian source or something that isn't overtly anti-Armenian, but their agenda possibly is. So I just don't listen to those. You guys had a few pictures up on your thing for today. You've got things like the Armenian Report, which is the lady who used to be on TMZ. She just does reporting. She's not giving you opinion pieces.
Right.
So she's just reporting certain things. Or Artsakh Media, same thing. I mean, they're not sitting around giving you opinion pieces. So if you want to get news, I mean, of course, if it's just reporting, that's fine. But you hardly ever have just reporting when it's from any of the sources that we've discussed. So and again, this is like super confusing, and it's not something that you want to be in a boat where you're saying, hey, you know what, I don't want to be reading the news because it's just, I don't know what's real and what's not. So
Right.
And
the end, yeah.
And to your point, actually, as we were just cycling through showing some of these entities, they are well funded. They're like someone that has done graphic design, like it's so amazing to see very well designed items, but that is skin deep, that is superficial, that is the actual damage is not how it looks, right? Because that's the allure, right? The actual damage
You
is
put
what
together a good theme on any number of platforms to build a website.
Yeah, absolutely. And so just as we were cycling through, remember what you said, like how anti-Russian it is, right? And at the moment, Russia is the only one with boots on the ground protecting us from being literally murdered. Okay.
Okay.
And the first thing that came up on EVN report, and I just noticed it. This is not EVN report. It was the troubles of Armenian blah 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 in the Eurasian what do you call it? The Eurasian free trade zone, which is the Russian answer to the EU, right?
Yeah.
Doesn't matter what that is. And there's probably something deep analysis there. But the fact that that's an important thing for EVN right now, at a time when Russia is, thank you, Rich, very, very succinct. Right, like I'm sure the analysis is there. There you go. Armenia's obstacles within the Eurasian Economic Union. I don't care what it is.
I completely agree with you, Greg. Yeah.
Right. I don't.
It feels tone deaf, right? It feels tone deaf, right?
Absolutely.
It feels tone deaf.
Or maybe Ara would say it's not tone deaf. It's kind of designed in a way that way. You know what I mean?
That would be my take. Yeah.
Yeah, it's like, well, don't worry about the literal wolves at the gate. Let's think about this other stuff.
You know, it is weird because EVN, I was sharing it every day. Every day they had a literal recap of the entire day news and events that happened during the war every single day. And it was literally time-stamped, everything that happened. And yet I could not find that anywhere on this site. I didn't look for very long, but to your point, Greg, I thought it was very interesting how it's hard to find a lot of talk about what's going on right now, especially on their homepage. But I actually do like the work that they've done. Otherwise, you know, this isn't a bash session necessarily of EVN.
Yeah. I still read them. I mean, I still read Azadutun. I still read EVN and CivilNet. But I mean, you just have to know where it's coming from while you're reading it. I mean, at the end of the day, if something, if they're sharing information or if they're sharing an analysis that you find beneficial, there's no reason not to read it. But I think it really just comes back to understanding who their funding sources is, because you don't want to lose your funder. I mean, if you're an NGO, if you're a news agency and you're relying on funding that you're used to, at the end of the day, you're somewhat beholden to them. You don't want to lose that funding. When you're getting $250,000 a year from one organization, or when you're getting $50,000 as a journalist, that goes a really long way in Armenia. I mean, $50,000 here is not $50,000 there. So
Right.
it has an impact, whether
Very
they say
valid.
it does, it doesn't. Whoever's funding you is going to play a part in what you think and what you. I mean, they're going to have their own spin.
Right. And here's one thing I would say about just getting back to that first article in EVN. I mean, we may be seeing it through these lenses of how dare they put this kind of stuff up to divert us away from this other stuff. But there could be another component. I'm just trying to play devil's advocate here. I mean, all of us have been under an extraordinary amount of stress and just incredible amounts of duress since the beginning of the war. I mean, we had a conversation earlier today about this, which is that, while America and the rest of us who are here have been through a tremendous amount just with COVID and just with the ramifications of a global pandemic. We've had the financial, we've had the legitimate health issues and all the different things that every other American has. But on top of that, we've had the stress of having our nation attacked and having this dismantling happen before our eyes, and this feeling of powerlessness to do anything about it, which has provoked many of us to do what we're doing right now. And so in that, I mean, you made mention earlier, Otto, about, we were up till 2, 3 o'clock in the morning. Yeah, most of us, I don't know about the rest of you guys, but I was living on an average of 3 hours of sleep a night for months. I mean, months, bags under my eyes, all of that. And it's because of stress. So all that to say this, many of us feel that urgency to do something because there's a legitimate, there's real things, tangible, problems that are happening. But to be on 11 constantly, I mean, I wouldn't mind reading about puppies and kittens and just, just for a little bit, just to act like there is a world beyond this crisis. Right. And so I can understand why they would have that, but I think that there is an urgency that needs to be addressed, and that I know we're obviously all living it, but I don't know how.
Yeah, how do you find that balance, right? I mean, look, if we have time, we'll touch on it. The Armenian national soccer team is 3-0 in Group J of World Cup qualifying. That's the best they've done. Is that ever, Greg? Is that ever?
Yeah.
Yeah, which is amazing.
I think it's the best period right now, right?
Right. So,
in their division at least.
But what's the balance of? Maybe we should talk about that briefly with our guest right now. Ara, what's the balance of actually consuming the news? How do we prioritize consuming? Okay, the Minister of IT just resigned, and Pashinyan is illegally campaigning. Oh, and Armenia won is 3-0 right now. How do we even digest that?
I think you guys do a really good balance, actually. I mean, you guys spend a lot of time dealing with the politics, but every episode, you guys cover the news too. I mean, random things that have happened, and I mean, this is a big thing. I mean, it's not every day that we qualify for the World Cup. So I mean, it's not to say that we're all supposed to be depressed all the time and never look at any of the positive things in Armenia, but
no, absolutely,
definitely a vast majority of Armenian news has been very bad news.
And I will just say one thing about the Armenian football team. Well, I'm going to call it football because that's the real name. Is that they're doing this in spite of ignoring my pleas 20 years ago to become their goalie. I'm just going to say that up because good on them.
Henrique isn't even on the team right now, right?
I noticed that.
That's amazing. That's amazing.
I haven't seen him on the scoreboard.
Mickey, he's not even on the team. So anyway, look, Ara, I mean, what else can you share with people, like what to look for in a site that would be deemed trustworthy, right? Yeah, it may be foreign funded, but can we still trust the information that they're providing? What do we look for that?
Just know that there's spin. So, I mean, you're not going to go and read up on who's funding every news source you're reading, but I mean, and then again, you've got opposition media too. I mean, so everyone's got spin. If and when I read it, I understand that, just like we do. I mean, if you pull up Breitbart's website, you're going to know that they've got spin one way in American politics. Right. If you pull up MSNBC, you're going to know the opposite. So, I mean, we can pick and choose what news we want to listen to and what resonates with us better. But I'd rather have funding from the army. I'd rather read a pro-Nikol source than I would a foreign funded source, just because at the end of the day, those organizations at one point, I mean, they still have journalists that have some integrity in there. The foreign funded ones, they're all foreign funded. So, I mean, I don't have a clear-cut answer.
Yeah. What's the $1 million question?
I mean, you know, because then it begs the question of what do these other foreign entities have involved, and you know, like what is their take on, what lens are they seeing it through, and why would they want things? Why would they want the information flow to go one direction or another? And then, you know, at some point, you know, you wonder, well, which foreign entities or which foreign, you know, groups
That's
more neutral than others? And I think that's a, you know, the money is always the problem.
Russia's not altruistic. I mean, they're not doing this because they absolutely love Armenians and they adore us. I mean, but at the end of the day, their interests align with ours better. So, I mean, if it's a pro-Russian source, I mean, I would prefer getting my news about Armenia from a pro-Russian source, because I know that at the end of the day, until we completely, I'm not going to use the expletives I want to use, but until something hits the fan and we completely piss them off, and we have another 1921 situation again where they side with the Turks against us, I know that their interests are more aligned with Armenia's sovereignty. So I mean, like I said, I've been following individuals more, like, or Rosminfo. If you want to know about Armenia's military and you want to know about Armenia's war, or any of the Armenian wars, or any of the militaries in the region, Garen Virtanesian is an expert in Armenia, and he has been for a very long time, and he runs a website called Rosminfo. It's it's like the quintessential news source for that. I don't know if they have English translations. I think they do.
And actually that's a great segue, because that is often the case that is an issue for a lot of the diasporans, right? That's where I actually have to give, you know, kudos to Asbarez, right? They kind of toe the line of continually, you know, having English language articles, and the others that they're competing with is, let's see if you want to talk about the things that are being said about Armenia in English, you have literally 4 areas maximum. It's Asbarez, Armenian Weekly, let's call it Asbarez as well, and Asbarez Junior, and there's also what do you call CivilNet, the other English, Hetk, very well translated to English, less so, but very, very well done. And then there's also, now EVN Report. And Azadutun, of course, being the major one, right? So between all those 5, you know, obviously, like, you know, I'm starting to lean towards Asbarez, because at least it's the most Armenian. It's also foreign. It's from the United States, right. But at least
it's run by an Armenian source, and at the end of the day, Armenian funding.
Exactly. Yeah. So look, lots to cover, lots to understand. It is a complicated subject, right? One thing we should kind of end on. We mentioned who the funding comes from, right? We mentioned like that there's also these foreign entities, and all these foreign entities assume this like ghostly figure, whether it's the CIA or NATO, something humongous like that. But there's one that's kind of always been there, and it's very anti-Armenian, and it's time to start angling towards understanding who they are and unveiling that. And that is the Open Society, right? The Open Society, right?
Foundation,
yeah, Open Society Foundation, which is kind of like the arm of the Soros Foundation, or the Soros International Organization.
And they've been around since '97, since LTP.
Exactly. So a lot of the funding comes from just that block, right?
Yeah, no, I mean, a lot of it. I mean, like a majority of the funding to like Transparency International in Armenia comes from the Soros Foundation, from the Open Society Foundation, EVN, HET, I think everything but Azadutun, because Azadutun is like
American funded.
But I mean, their goals are the same. I mean, I would think the Open Society Foundation, as well as the West, call it. I mean, their goals are anti-communist, anti-Russian, and very pro-NATO, pro-neoliberalism, liberalism. So it's trying to transition these post-Soviet countries to completely pro-West capitalist countries and become very anti-Russian. So that's their main narrative from all of these sources, whether it's from Open Societies Foundation, which you mentioned, the oldest one in Armenia and the one that's most influential. And by the way, I mean, you can go to war and you can spend tens of millions of dollars a day on a war. I don't know how much the Artsakh war cost. I'm assuming it's in the dozens of millions a day that we lost funding that. Or you can spend 50 something million, which is what the Open Society Foundation has spent over 20 years, and have more damage than you could in one day of straight war. And I mean, that's essentially what has happened. It's a much longer game. It's not the blunt force type of war, type of change. It's the very long-term, slow disinformation and propaganda game that they've been playing. And I'd argue it's more effective.
And I think it is more effective. And interestingly enough, when you mention things about having to be very pro-Western and very anti-Russian, I mean, I don't know that that's necessarily a bad thing, other than the fact that it puts us in a very bad position. It puts Armenia specifically in a very bad position, and it obviously has. And look at how it's worked out. But my point is this: if you're going to assert yourself, like if these countries are, or how do I put this? If the Open Society Foundation's mission is going to be asserted into other countries, there's a level of responsibility that kind of inherently should come with that. And what they've done is basically steered a society in one direction without any of the responsibility for the ramifications of what has happened. And as a result, we've lost, well, we've been talking about how much we've lost for months now. And so it is.
I mean, they don't care. I mean, their goal isn't to destroy Armenia. It's Armenia doesn't matter.
That's exactly.
I mean,
That's right.
There's a reason Russia doesn't have an Open Societies chapter. There's a reason Turkey doesn't have it anymore. There's a reason Azerbaijan doesn't have it anymore. They have kicked out the Open Society Foundation from their countries. And a lot of these other Western NGOs, or they just never had them because it's not part of the larger game at play. But we love the foreign everything.
Yeah, I was just gonna ask Ara if you could elaborate briefly. I know we're going a little long tonight. Thanks for staying up with us and joining us late. Just elaborate on what you mean by damage. Like, what kind of damage is being done by this entity?
I mean, think about it this way: when you look at have you guys? I didn't know this existed until a year ago, probably. When you look at the list of heroes of Artsakh, these are the people who were tasked. I mean, these are the ones who won Artsakh back from us from 88 to 94.
We just lost a major.
Which is lost. I mean, a majority of it is now lost. The vast majority of it.
80%.
But if you look at the list of all the people who got the title Hero of Artsakh, all the dead ones are still heroes. Anyone still living, they have been demonized. And part of the agenda is to break down your national institutions and nationalist identity. So for you to be this wonderful lapdog of the West, you shouldn't have these nationalist agendas because you want to be integrated into this globalist society, which again, as a person in the West, with privilege living here, I'm for, but I understand that doesn't work for small countries that well because they're the first to be absorbed and erased. So the West for us is, you just have to look directly west of Armenia. It's Turkey. They are the deepest foothold of NATO in that region, and for us to be fed peace and love and harmony with your neighbors. And I was very surprised. I mean, I think you were on the same clubhouse I was when Ara Krikorian, who's a very, very PC, middle of the road, never says anything drastic, especially about the American government, American policy towards Armenia. is taking a very hardline stance that, hey, they're screwing us. That, I think that's a huge wake up call to everyone. I mean, when Turkey and Azerbaijan and our enemies are being fed weapons and monetary support, but we're being fed democracy. I mean, we've always been a democratic country. Yes, we have corruption.
And money reduced to us.
Yeah, I mean, we're being fed hopes and dreams and love, and telling our people to remove, not just telling us, the Pashinyan's administration removed Armenian language, Armenian nationalistic history, and the Armenian church history from its mandatory curriculum. Imagine if English was removed. Imagine English being removed from the mandatory curriculum K through 12 in America, and it's being given to you as an elective if you want to take English.
Yeah.
I mean,
that is a great point. That is a great point. And here's again, I'm gonna keep drilling against open society over and over because I'm trying to make sure that they come out of the shadows now, right?
Oh yeah.
So there's this notion, right, that of internationalism. And by the way, what's being doled out to Armenia is not being asked of Turkey or Azerbaijan. We can do it. Yeah, we can do an analysis on Georgia, but that's a separate story. It's a different story, and I'm not Georgian, okay? But we can talk about that at some point. The point being is this: sometimes you just need to take blocks, right, and analytically understand them. Open society is directly linked to Soros. At the time that the war is happening, Soros puts out a statement saying that the West unequivocally must be with Turkey against Russia. Okay, so put on your brain, Armenians, and understand that maybe you like, democracy, and maybe you like, but do you like survival? This is literally the boss of the organization that's funding a lot of NGOs in Armenia saying that we are always and forever needing to be behind Turkey against Russia. The guy didn't even cloak it. He put out an op-ed on his own. You can Google go to the soros.org and you can see that it's still out there. I think it's dated September or something like that. Okay.
Yeah, these aren't even like hidden agendas. That's the crazy part. I mean, if you look at their funding, they list every single Armenian organization and NGO and news company that they funded with how much in what year. I mean, these aren't like, it's not even hidden agendas to your point. I mean, they're explicitly saying which side they're on. But we just don't seem to care.
So that's one part. The other part is you start analyzing the policies, right? And that educational reform was the very first thing that was kind of the crack in the veneer, right? Or this porcelain doll of our neutered revolution, right? I was like, oh wow, why would you go there immediately? But anyways, so the idea is for our viewers, be critical. Think critically. Understand why would you want to reduce the educational value of the Armenian language in a country that's less than 3 million people, and it's the only kind of breeder of Armenian culture outside of the diaspora. You know what I mean? Like, why would you do that? And once you start questioning that, you start kind of following the breadcrumbs. And we at Arach Media will try to bringing more Aras and people like Ara to explain that, hey, even though the site is beautiful, the agenda there is foreign fed. The things that are being fed to you may agree with something that you think, which is another reason why I appreciate Ara, is that we're both like, liberals in the West. But it seems like every time we talk about Armenian politics, I'm being pigeonholed as some kind of a right-wing nationalist, crazy boy. You know what I mean? Like, and it's a crazy place to be in right now. When in reality, you just want the survival of Armenia. That's what
I think that's a really big factor. I mean, the geopolitics of us in the West is so different than the geopolitics of Armenia in Armenia. I mean, in that region. I mean, we're a offshore power, a superpower. We've got a solid economy. We don't have any neighboring enemies that are about to invade us. It's a different universe than what Armenia exists in. I mean, you're surrounded by enemies. I mean, Georgia even is considered an enemy. 2.6% of our border is with someone who is an ally, and that's Iran. I mean, our closest ally and protector, again, for their own interests as much as ours, is Russia. They're not even connected to us. And the geopolitics of that region is so different that we can't use the same lens that we have here in the US, right. Our Western privileged lens, and try to apply that to essentially a third world country that's completely surrounded and landlocked by enemies. So it's right. I think it's ignorant and naive to try to apply the same lens to Armenia that we do here. I mean, again, I look at myself here in America differently than I look at the country of Armenia. And the politics and the understanding of our history. I mean, well, we don't have a history anymore. We're not going to be teaching it. So I don't know. It's a really sad situation. And the current administration, whether anyone thinks that they're a traitor or they're inexperienced or they're inept or whatever the reason that they make excuses for themselves and the government, they failed on nearly every front. Forget the war, the economy, emigration now, education, every single metric.
COVID.
I mean, we just found out last night that a friend of ours, his mother died in Armenia after a week of having COVID. So it's absolutely insane, the situation. But
I'm going to at some point ask you who that friend is, because my friend's mother just died.
they're from Syria.
Okay, no.
They emigrated directly from Syria. I don't know.
This man is actually from another forgotten pogromed area, which is the city of Ganja, and it was known back then as Kirovabad, and she was one of the biggest leaders of Armenians of Kirovabad in Yerevan, and she passed away. She was in her 80s, but yeah, if it wasn't for COVID, she'd still be around. So, so yeah, there's COVID.
Yeah.
Multitudes, yeah.
If you have a coach and they fail, and they have like a 1-70 record. I mean, this call for unity and let's just be united behind this person. You don't keep the same coach. You fire that coach. I don't care if you think that he's sabotaging the game or you think he's a failure. At the end of the day, he's a failure, or whatever the reason is. That person and their entire coaching team.
I want to open up a can of worms, especially at the end of this. But you know, the thing to remember is, and I'm not giving the guy a hall pass by any means, but then the question becomes, well, then who? And then how's that going to play out? And I think that is what he's leveraging.
3 million people that are completely inept. I mean, I say this all the time. I'd rather have Big Bird at the seat or a houseplant. They do less damage. I mean, we have so many politicians. We have so many experts in the country. Right. You're never going to, after the Velvet Revolution, you're never going to have this like overt oligarchy that everyone's afraid of. Things change. I mean, they've changed permanently. It doesn't mean that you're ever going to go back to this society that you thought it was going to be. No one's mentally there anymore. So
I agree.
There are so many people that it could be. And again, I'm not an expert in politics in Armenia. There are tons of politicians there. I guarantee you, any one of them, the least experienced one, would be better suited at doing this than.
I happen to agree. Absolutely.
So I'd like to sort of try and bring this to center. We've covered a lot of ground tonight. We started with the news, and Otto, this has been a fantastic conversation. And again, we've covered a lot of ground in this. So I've put up all of the links to many of the different news sources that are available. The next thing that I'm going to post is the link to our link tree, which David, I think we'll be updating it this week, and including many of the links for those media organizations inside that. I know I'm speaking for you, and I don't mean to put any extra work on you.
Let's talk about it. It's more if we're taking action, but we absolutely can do that. We can.
Yeah.
We can.
So, at least now you'll have there's some centralized places to get this information to go make some of these decisions on your own. Next week, we're going to be talking about how to take that information and then use it in a social media context. David has been doing some fantastic work recently, and we'll be able to help disseminate that. So anyway,
more active, not just sharing a link. There's more we can be doing on social media and even in email and even in text message with people using this information. And perhaps, Greg, you touched on it, and thank you, Ara, so much for all of your insight and your thoughts on this. It's been really eye-opening for me. I can imagine it's eye-opening for our viewers as well. But perhaps what people can really take away from this is just really, especially if you're looking at different sources, just really use discernment and have a critical eye, and in terms of what information you're going to take from it and how you're going to use it, and which sources to really follow. So just really use a critical eye in all areas. I think it's important.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Absolutely. yeah, and I know it's challenging. I know some of the diasporans, you barely learn what is Shushi, and you barely understand what is Artsakh, because you're an Armenian fifth generation from, lack of a better word, let's use Van, the region of Van, formerly known as Tushpa Kingdom and all that. And now you're gonna and now you need to think critically about what happened in the Artsakh War. Well, yeah, if you're a member of the Armenian nation, this is what's been given to us. I
Yeah.
often think of other nations that have the privilege of doing what they could. Some of the Scandinavians, like sometimes I wonder how it's like to be a Swede, or if you're in Switzerland, you probably don't have genocides to think about. But we're Armenian. This is us. Merdardene.
Yeah.
This is our kind of cross to bear. And if you're part of this nation, you will learn to adapt as we have as well. So, thank you for giving us some of this wisdom. We'll continue to kind of push what we can. And I know people come to us. They say, "Hey guys, I didn't know this. Now I know that." Even one person gets educated on something, I feel like we did a good job.
Absolutely.
Right.
So,
That's right.
No, thank you guys. Thank you so much for having me on. I appreciate what you guys do. My wife and I, we watch it weekly, and
Yeah. Thanks for all
comment a
your.
lot every now and then. But
nice.
No, just to let you know, Otto, this was a clever ploy to avoid having to respond to 15 different messages on our feed. Just let you know.
it works well. didn't it?
Hey, it's great though, man. Keep it coming. Ara, thanks so much for your participation. Your
Thank you, guys. By the
viewership.
way, David, last time I saw you was the first time I met Rich.
Awesome, man.
It was,
Yeah.
it
Probably in
was
SAC, right?
2009. Yeah.
Awesome.
we need to make
All
We'll
right.
come up, man. We're coming up to SAC soon, man. We'll be up there soon. So yeah.
Definitely.
Good. I'll host.
Do it, man. We can do it outdoors with masks.
We'll do a movie night at Rich's.
Yeah. Yeah, I got a great surprise for you guys. I'll be making storage and everything. It'll be good. So
nice. There you go. No meat products though.
that's
'cause
right. That's how I do it.
This
All right.
guy's a vegan.
It's
That's
permanent
all
I'm
box.
a vegetarian. I've heard I'm vegan. Anyway,
All right.
so I just want to thank you, Otto, for being here. This is for sure. It's very, very enlightening. So why don't we do this? Next week, same bat time, same bat channel, 9 p.m. Pacific time, here on Facebook Live. We're going to be doing the second part of this, which is how to take some of this information and how to utilize it correctly and how to amplify some of these messages, because the Western media isn't doing enough. And how to really get into the space that our legislators are into, and just really take this information and bring it to another level. That's what it is. We all have a calling, and we have to answer that. So that said, next Wednesday, same bat time. Look at all the items on the feed. There's links to all these different news organizations plus our link tree. Please, if you're watching after this, donate to the Armenian Wounded Heroes Fund, and we look forward to seeing you next week.
Thank you.
Thank
All right.
you guys. Good night.
Everybody stick around.
Okay.
Awesome.
Good night, everyone.
All right.
Awesome. Good night, guys.